LaurieAnne. You look lovely today.
Yes, you do. Good to see you. Do you know Daniel?
No, never met. Nice to
Hi,
meet
nice
you.
to meet
LaurieAnne
you.
Lassek.
Yeah.
She's been in the tech industry for 14 years.
Yeah, that's just like a dinosaur, huh?
Why don't we start with hearing a little bit about
you and your
career.
So it's interesting because I was around during the first dot-com boom bust cycle, and I've watched, the Valley kind of explode the way that it has, and it's actually something I never expected to get into tech to begin with, and it's been so awesome. I started in PR in tech and working with consumer technology companies like Sega, HP, and those types of companies, and then I moved into marketing and the social media world right when everything was kind of exploding, and started to work with early stage startups, and that's been super fun. Yeah, someone asked me the other day, just kind of looking at like the difference between working at a startup and working at a more established company, what it was like to work there after working with all the startups that I've worked with, and I said I work with adults. It's actually kind of fun. It's fun, just like people really are deep into their expertise.
How did Girls in Tech get started?
Adriana and I met along with Julie French also started it. Ultimately, the conversation was we need to get more women out, from kind of behind their desks and out into the industry. And you're talking about events, and just to take that human IP that's there that sometimes is underrepresented. It's not really so much like we felt like we needed to make some feminist statement, but it was more just about supporting girls in tech. And so Adriana's done an amazing job of taking the organization global, and I'm so proud of what she's done.
Yeah, it's gotten so big,
Yeah.
especially in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Because when I first got into tech, it wasn't really that big of a deal, and now it's like everywhere.
Yeah.
They're doing really well.
Yeah, earlier women's organizations in the tech world were a bit outdated in terms of the way that we approach business, why there aren't more women in technology. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's just representative women in business in general. There are a lot of old line industries that have just typically been more male, predominantly male, like automotive, financial. There's just a lot of professions which tend to, for whatever reason, over time have been dominated by men. And I think that's changing.
Yeah, because it seems like, the instance that happened at Disrupt, I don't know if you heard about it. That's the kind of thing
lady
that...
panel?
Yeah, we were there, but we didn't see it
Yeah.
occur, but everybody was asking us what we thought of it, and it just seems like those are the kind of things that are stopping,
Right.
misrepresenting women as a whole, and but I do think it's changing though, because there is more and more women out there talking on panels and starting startups, and it's great,
Which I think is great. And I was actually very, very happy that TechCrunch did have a panel of female panelists. I don't think they had bad intentions with putting all the women together. I think it was them trying to assist the female communities.
It's like any personality, though, right?
Yeah.
So when you stick certain personalities together, you're going to get a certain
Yeah,
chemistry and a certain combination of things, and that can happen with guys, too. So
Yeah.
I feel like in that particular instance, it just was a pretty highly visible
Yeah.
situation. When I was working with Adriana, we put on, a few years ago, we did a women in VC panel, and nothing of the sort occurred. It was actually a really measured, reasonable dialogue, and so it just depends, I think, on the people, on the individuals.
Yeah.
What about teen women in tech? Are there more of them now, or is it still kind of...
I mean, there's definitely more and more. It's hard to find them, though. It's hard to find the ones that aren't shy and aren't, willing to get out there.
Yeah, you don't want to say, does anyone have any questions? And you get crickets. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So we've actually struggled, but, they're out there. It's a matter of finding them. And, thanks to organizations like Girls in Tech and Women 2.0 and all these, I mean, we're starting to see more and more. But for me personally, I'd like to see more younger women entrepreneurs.
Has Jessica Ma been involved with Teens in Tech?
Yeah, she was our first ever conference. She was our keynote speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jessica's kind of, I think when you think of young entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, Jessica Ma's kind of on the top of that list.
And Dana Boyd, I think, too.
Dana, yeah.
Oh, and we'll actually be having Jessica on the show beginning of December, so we're really excited about that. But she's doing really, really just amazing things within Dinero, and we're really looking forward to see the company grow.
Yeah.
And LaurieAnne, do you have any tips for women who are trying to break into the industry?
I would just say, if you have the opportunity to get balanced exposure to, both the technical and the more strategic business side of it, to do both, because I think it's really helpful. And to not be intimidated by it, because it's not rocket science in some cases. I mean, there's just so many like plug and play tools now that you can use to market your business, to reach out to people, to build relationships and business development and all that. It's just, I feel like it's gotten easier to build something.
And I mean, from personal experience, because I run a Facebook application development agency that I started almost 2 years ago now, I would say that even if you can't code, at least be able to conceptualize.
That's right.
So be able to work with developers to, get things done.
And I think you need to know basic HTML. I mean, I think that would really help you just to understand where things are going. And even if you're starting a blog, you need to know those things. And that just really, it's easy. You could learn it, as you said, you could go on YouTube and learn all the stuff really easily right now. So what do you enjoy about the industry, and what are your turnoffs?
I think that we're in an echo chamber, and I think we forget that not everybody is in the valley, and kind of that we have to remember that there's another whole world out there, and I tend to think that it's important to like share the love and spread our knowledge base, and it'd be great to see like there are pockets popping up in the Midwest and in other markets where there's innovation in tech, and I love seeing that.
Boulder's a big one.
Boulder, even Omaha, which is
There's a conference there called the Big Omaha.
That's right. Yeah.
And tons of big kind of people and from Silicon Valley go over there. The big people in the valley go over to France for this conference, and it's really interesting how we're seeing all of this. I completely agree with everything you're saying about this whole bubble, and we do live in a bubble, and it's hard
It's
to
a cool bubble.
It's a nice bubble.
Yeah. But it's when you're trying to do, especially marketing, and you're trying to talk to people outside of the bubble, you're kind of locked in and you don't know what to do with yourself.
I think I was at the Business of APIs conference yesterday that Mashry put on, which it was a great turnout. They did a really nice job in thinking about how we develop apps and like what is going to be translatable to the average user. Like how do I make this relevant to you? And I think that's when you're talking to your family, like your mom or your dad, and people ask you like, what do you do, and how do you just making it relevant to someone outside of this world. And I think that's part of adoption, right?
Yeah. Very quickly, because we're going to be running out of time soon, I would really love to just quickly chat about handling PR for startups. And if you don't have a budget, you don't have anybody to do your PR for you, what's some advice that you can give to people about product announcements, company launches, that kind of thing?
Pitches.
It's all conversation, and I think you can't start too soon. I think I've worked with companies that are still skunkworks or alpha and really pre-launch, but mapping out, I like to think in 90-day chunks, and so if and I have kind of taught a lot of people how to do this so they can do it themselves. And I feel like one of the basic things is just understanding what media are writing about, whether it's kind of a traditional outlet like Forbes, or if it's more of the blog, kind of progressive, publishing site. Just understand what people are really interested in hearing, and then help them understand, like I said before, what's relevant, and kind of map out that storyline, like why is this interesting to people, and then start the conversation early and have it often, because you may or may not get someone to write about you right away, but at least if they're following you and they understand what you're trying to build, usually people are pretty supportive. And so it's a relationship, and it's a story, and it's a conversation. And so I think you can do that fairly well if you bring yourself up to speed on what's going on in publishing, basically.
Yes, and I think that's one good thing about this industry is people are supportive a lot of the time. Wouldn't you agree that people want to help you?
Yeah, I mean, another tip that I would add on top of that is that a lot of bloggers, when they do research on your company, they want to see other people write about you. So get the smaller bloggers to write about you first, and then when you email TechCrunch or Mashable, and you can say, hey, this guy who has his little community but it's still pretty powerful wrote about us. It gives them more incentive to look into your company.
I also just think that's really, really good advice. Like, don't set your sights on the New York Times right away. Start kind of in the bottom, work yourself up to the middle.
I spend a lot of time setting expectations for people in that area.
So last questions we have for you guys. You guys both need to share a juicy story.
I do have a few. They might be too juicy.
No, we're uncensored. No, nothing's too juicy here.
Well, I have a sort of a fun one. One of the first, I think it was the first Crunchies. I was sitting up late, as I typically am, up in the nosebleed seats, and I sat in the balcony. There was one seat next to me, and I remember thinking, I'm so lucky I got a seat. And I was looking down, they were doing the voting, like people were kind of voting on who's going to win in various categories. And a gentleman sits down next to me, white hair, suit. I'm like, he looks familiar. It's Ron Conway.
I was just
And-
gonna say, is it Ron Conway?
Yeah,
I'm like,
and I had
know
met
that
him
look.
at that point in time, so I was like, "Hey, Ron," and he goes, and he actually recognized me, which I thought was kind of funny too. And so we were both just playing around, like betting against each other as to who we thought was going to win. Of course, Facebook took everything, and he was right. So that was just kind of a fun little moment in time, kind of predicting the trajectory of a lot of the companies that were there early on.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap up. We'll have you
talk
come back when
about-
we'll have you come
right.
back and share a juicy story.
Amazing.
And next week we're gonna have Gina Vakili from Canon Partners, and we're gonna be talking about Web After Dark. We're gonna be hosting the summit, the Web 2.0 summit after party. So we're gonna be talking about that, and we're
Yay.
also gonna have Andrew Major.
From Simple Geo, and I'm really excited to talk to him about kind of some of the stuff he has going on. I know he's pretty influential here, and it's like everybody I run into knows Andrew Major.
Yeah,
Andrew's
so.
great.
he's everywhere, and he's a great guy. So we're really excited, and enjoy your weekend, and tune in next week. And thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
All right.